figured you'd tell me when you were ready.
When he was just a young bird, only a year since his egg had cracked open, the small pelican was always getting into trouble. His mother was forced to save him on numerous occasions when his curiosity got the better of him. But the young, playful bird was forced to grow up too soon after his parents were taken away by devilish human machines as they claimed territory. He was taken by humans and experimented on. Countless horrors and painful operations were inflicted upon him. Strange drugs and medicines made his senses weak and his body frail. But one day, when all hope had faded, he saw the sun rise through the bars in his metal cage. And the great Pelican god spoke to him in a vision. And the young bird received a gift from the Pelican god. Energy flowed inside him, giving him a strength of mind that healed his body and soul. And thus, the great Pelican King was born.
Could you elaborate?
When the two young pelican friends landed on the roof, they couldn't believe the sight they were seeing. All their efforts to save the population of the center had been for nothing. They heard the screams of fellow pelicans from the closed rooms below. The humans had turned on their alarms and had closed the center, burning all experimental subjects inside, alive. The young pelican was furious. This was not what the vision had foretold. He was supposed to be the savior of his people, not its slaughterer. The proud feeling he had when seeing himself as king of a free pelican nation had dissipated in the glory flames of death and reality. He felt his knees bending as the power drained from him. Then the world turned as he fell from the roof. He tried to spread his wings, but the tubes and wiring were still connected, the drugs still clogging his mind. And then, as he fell, he saw it. The red hook above the door. There was still time. With all his might, and with his last effort, he spread his wings, breaking the plastic tubes and devices that the humans had put on him. Then he flew blindly into the hook, slamming his body in an attempt to open it. He had to open the door to save his people. But behind him, a human in a suit of armor stood ready to keep the birds inside as they burned. He saw a hole appearing in his wing as he clutched the hook with his paws. Pain and despair shot through him as his vision turned red from blood. But he turned and looked at the human. Overconfident, the man took off his helmet so he could better aim for the bird. Then milliseconds later, the pelican's beak broke through his eye socket and entered his brain in agony. Triumphant, the pelican shouted in rage. "You fucking humans. You made me. You brought this on yourselves." He saw the remote control in the bloody hand of the human. Then with one pick on the right button, the door opened and he collapsed, dying. But the other birds instantly rushed to him. Gently they picked him up and brought him far away into the forest. He was their savior, their king, and they would make sure he would live.
Well, take a deep breath and start from the beginning.
Having saved his people from the danger, all other pelicans now looked up to him and proclaimed him king. But his eyes were sad, and his heart was heavy, for the fight for the freedom of all pelicans had just begun. He vowed to keep his people safe. He flew to the highest rock and looked down to the throng of pelicans that were his people. There were millions upon millions in a sea of birds. Behind them, the last remnants of the battle. Countless pelicans had given their lives in the fight against the humans. The fields still stained in their blood. The pelican that was now king pointed to the horizon and started to speak. "This is only the first wave," he said. "They will come in the numbers of hundreds or thousands, perhaps millions. They will come with their machines and their..." King Pelican did not finish his sentence. The shadow of the human machines looming in the sky fell over them. bombs fell from the openings at their belly. He did not even have to tell his people to attack. A throng of millions of pelicans flew up towards the human flying machines. Thousands of them died, clinging to the falling bombs in an attempt to slow them down so they could save the children and nests below. It seemed a hopeless battle, but King Pelican knew they would win, by the grace of the great pelican god himself. The sky colored black as the throng of birds flew up in defense. Thousands of his people were dying as they fought the hellish machines. Vulnerable and unprotected bird flesh against metal machines from hell. The humans were shooting fire from strange metal weapons, but the pelicans had their numbers. Millions upon millions flew up to join the battle. And King Pelican himself flew up, straight towards the human flagship, but his people would not let him approach. They needed to keep him safe. Hundreds of them stopped him, begging to stay safe, as millions others threw themselves onto the flagship. And when they finally penetrated its hull, the Pelicans showed no mercy to the few humans inside. With zeal and fervor, they devoured their enemy. And one by one, the human ships started to fall from the sky, each one representing the sacrifice of thousands of pelicans. And when the battle was over, King Pelican did not have to rally his people or defend his home ever again. And from that day on, everyone knew the might of the great pelican people and their king.
So, give me the details.
When the humans first heard of the Pelican City near the edges of the unknown wastes, they laughed. Was this a joke? Sentient pelicans that took down a squadron of bombers and managed to create a city from the remains? In mere days? They fired the messenger, then rehired him when they saw the presidential seals on the messages were real. Then when they heard that Vault-Tec was involved, they knew that it wasn't a joke. It wasn't for fun. This was bloody serious. As they read the reports, they learned that by now all pelicans had been infected by the sentient virus. And when the sky turned gray with approaching birds, mere days later, they knew that the Pelican King was not a myth. He had come in full force, all of his followers, and when the birds landed, the city stopped. Every corner and street was filled with birds. And not just pelicans now, but all birds. It had spread and spread until all birds had grown into one nation under the Pelican King. The humans did not get the chance to panic. Instantly, the city belonged to the millions of birds. Military stations, schools, graveyards. Government Hall was filled. Then the birds spoke, all together. It was a thunder, a booming sound that shook the earth, spreading awe and fear into all humans. All hail the great Pelican King. King Pelican landed on the desk, right in front of the president. His beak looked worn. His left wing had a hole that hadn't closed up. His security men otherwise occupied, the president heard the bird breathing through its beak. It just sat there, looking at the scared man. And when the president wanted to speak, King Pelican interrupted him. Be silent when your king speaks. And King Pelican stared at the man. Was this the great feared leader of the humans? You are a tool of your own product and machinations, the Pelican King finally said. The bird's voice sounded throaty and hollow, as if it hated having to use human language. You have achieved great might. Your scientists are playing God now, making the birds sentient. But you have gone too far when you attacked my people. You have killed thousands of us, perhaps millions. For all your military might and machinery, we are far superior. We are one. King Pelican leaned forward as he spoke. Then, with a thunderous and booming noise, all birds spoke after him. We are one. And the great Pelican King gave the human leaders all over the world his demands. For any bird killed by a human would follow. They say that this city is still out there somewhere, holding the descendants of the great Pelican King and his followers.
I'm listening.
When he woke up, still groggy from the drugs they had administered, he looked around the white room made of stone. He tried to move, but his wings were tied to the metallic table, rings pushing through his flesh. Old wounds from many experiments. But when he looked around the room, it was as if he saw for the first time. The light hurt his eyes as he tried to adjust his head. And strange realizations came over him. He had known pain, hunger, sex, all of his life. But now he felt something different. For the first time in his life, he felt truly awake. And then he realized what he saw. Beside him, other birds were tied to other metallic tables, all of them dead. And those that were not dead were dying in delirium. He tried to free himself, but there was nothing he could do. Then suddenly, the door burst open and a human stumbled in. Behind him, 100 pelicans that turned him into a bloody pile of flesh. Screaming in agony, the remains fell to the floor, where it was left to properly die. An old and battle-worn looking pelican flew in, then landed beside him on the table. "I'm so sorry," the old pelican said. "I should have come much earlier. I should have saved you all. We didn't know about this last facility." The humans kept it a secret, even from their leaders. "The war is long over. I am King Pelican, and I'm here to free you. You are safe now, with us." King Pelican gently lifted the bruised wing from the table, after carefully taking the rings out of the bird's flesh. Grateful, the bird looked up to him and nodded, then collapsed into a weary dream as King Pelican flew him to a new home.
Please, tell me what you know.
His kingdom was safe, weaponized and ready, sheltered in the vault they had taken just days earlier, after the king had foreseen what would happen. He sat perched at the vault entrance, looking at the mushroom clouds of destruction as he cursed the filthy humans for destroying the world. As the vault door closed behind him, he felt cold and dead inside. Such betrayal from a loved one. He felt something break inside. The king looked at his longtime friend, now chained up near the vault entrance. "Why? Why would you kill so many of us with your betrayal?" King Pelican pleaded. "I deserve the greatest punishment, my liege," the general whispered. "I don't want to punish you," the king said. "I just need to understand." The general looked up at his old friend, then shook his beak. "You're all safe, here in the vault. That's all that matters," the general said. "So, the means are justified? Is that what you think?" King Pelican asked. "This, all of this, everything, it's all on you. You caused all of this, O great Pelican King. Your inability to recognize your place. We are just birds. We are not meant to think or feel emotions. Already, our offspring is devolving. You've seen it. You know the truth. It's only ever been our generation. All your lies about the future. It was all hopeless. The virus cannot be sustained. You knew from the beginning." King Pelican leapt forward and decapitated the general with one blow. But the damage had been done, all around him in this sealed vault. Young birds and panicked pelicans looked towards their king for truth and guidance. And now that the humans had destroyed the world, how could their race be sustained? "We will use these machines that the humans built. They are meant to freeze their own kind for long periods of time. And there we will wait, so we can re-emerge when the world has been healed. And so it was that the Pelican kind froze themselves into the vault, and the tale of King Pelican came to an end.